How are you doing this morning?
So fantastic. Yeah, it's been a nice way to wake up, getting to come here.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad. And you've had quite the busy week with your guys' preview starting. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's been so fantastic to finally get an audience in front of it. We've been rehearsing since January and we had 5 weeks of tech. This is just one of those shows where, um, it is just such a beast in terms of all the technical magic and all of the different things that are going on. If it's any sign of it, it's just like three turntables at any time, moving any different direction and things coming in and hanging out on the sides. So getting the choreography on stage and off stage down so that it's a smooth process has been a wild ride, but it's been great to have fans finally get to be a part of it.
Well, I was gonna ask because as you said, this has to be a beast of a show with everything that the show itself is. It's very, CGI, very a technical show. So in this case, for you, when you first began the rehearsal process and before you even stepped on the stage to do the blocking and all that stuff, was there at any point where you were like, how is this all gonna work?
It's I think when you have a team like Sonia Friedman, who has already proven that they can really make magic happen with Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, there's a little bit of trust that goes into it. Plus, when you have two of the people who are helming it, Stephen Daldry and Justin Martin, who have a wealth of experience of putting on really unbelievable theatrical pieces from I mean like the one that I always was resonant most with was The Inheritance. These just massive theatrical experiences that people don't see often. So there was a bit of trust there, and I would assume that Netflix wasn't going to put their stamp on unless they thought it could happen. And obviously the West End cast was so highly successful. But I think for me personally, coming from Back to the Future first national tour, which was a technical beast in its own right, a car on stage doing all sorts of things. The opening of Stranger Things is in some ways very similar to the end of our end of Act One and Back to the Future in terms of just every set piece moving in this beautiful sort of technical human dance. So I think that gave me a really great starting point. And then it was just fantastic. We were over at Open Jar, and we were so lucky to have a turntable with us throughout the preview or the rehearsal process. So, by the time that we actually have an audience, it was sort of like second nature, being able to step on and off and do all of your different blocking. So.
Oh, I was literally about to ask about the turntable. Like, how do you even, because now you said it's so natural to you to be like, oh, step on, and you just kind of move. Was there any point, especially in the beginning, where you were like, there's going to be a chance I'm just going to wipe out at some point?
There was a really funny moment the other night where I didn't realize how close to the final edge that I didn't realize how close I was. And I took this step off and I felt my body begin to twist in a very different direction than I was anticipating. But what was really lovely is that you talk about that second nature, right? It's like any sport, it's like any dance. There is some part where your body has learned the skills as well. And I found myself just naturally turning. And I'm sure the audience was like, why did he do a little pirouette right there in the middle of that scene? That was an interesting choice. But in terms of the body begins to take over. And plus, I mean, we've got like a small town in this cast, right? 34 people on stage. All of our swings, our covers, our understudies are all on stage every single night to really give that sense of Hawkins
Mhm.
and that sense of the world that people already love from the TV show. So there's so many people that have your back constantly. So if something did go slightly awry, somebody would be there to, make sure that I didn't completely fall on my face.
And is that for you also the nice thing about the previews, even though you have the audience there, there is that little bit of, okay, well, if I mess up now, at least it's not during like the full opening night kind of segment. I can kind of get the nuts and bolts out now.
I think what's really beautiful about a preview process is that it is about finding the balance of a show, right? I mean, it's our first opportunity to really see what audiences are connecting to, how they're connecting to it. And this show, particularly because it was brought over from the West End, it's an American writer and obviously, based in an American story, but there's just a different sentimentality about certain elements of it. So, what we've been finding is actually it's about playing. We are going out there and doing the best that we can do because there are people out in the audience who are paying to see the show, right? We want to bring as high a quality of performance to that thing. But I think what people sometimes don't realize about previews is that most cases they are seeing a show that will be like truly any other that anybody sees during opening. Because during the day, like later today, I'll be going and teching a brand new scene that I've never seen before, and we'll be trying it out tonight. So it's this really beautiful collaboration that gets to happen between the ensemble, the crew, as well as the audience, and seeing what works and what can be changed in a new way.
Well, I also know from an audience perspective because I'm based out of DC, so we get a lot of the previews run down here, and then they
Sure.
go up and they open on Broadway. So, like, I love to go see a preview show and then go and see it when it's running on Broadway and see what the changes they've made are, and kind of wonder myself, like, oh, that was a good change. Oh, I wonder why they changed that. So to hear that, like, you're about to go do a tech on a whole brand new scene, and then hope it just goes well tonight, like that's such fun pressure, but also a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's where rehearsals really come into play. I mean, it's about building that trust, that camaraderie, the love between people. That to me has like always been the biggest thing about theater in general, is just that collaborative effort that occurs and the trust that you build through the process of creating and trying things out, right? I mean, I think what you have alluded to and what's really beautiful is that every theater, every state, every town, is going to have a different sense of the thing. And all of it is contributing to the final piece, right? The final sort of expression of whatever that is. And so when it comes to New York, it's not that it's quote unquote, suddenly the best thing on earth. It's just merely this version of the piece.
Mhm.
I hope to be seeing Stranger Things: The First Shadow, 10 years from now with a completely different cast and have a completely different expression, right? That's the beauty of this collaborative art form. It's always changing, and that's not just night to night with the audience. It's with how you put it together in the room as well.
Well, I think you put it so beautifully because unlike when you do, for example, your time on Harlem, where you're in front of a camera, you get that opportunity to kind of make changes when necessary. Every night is different when you're on the stage, not only because you never know what's going to happen because it's, live, but also because there's somebody, as you said, sitting in that seat who's paying for this, who has never seen it before. And it's your job to bring across a performance that is memorable. So in 10 years, you're able to do this. And so, especially on this one that has already a very large cult following, how do you hope to achieve that?
Yeah, yeah. I think it is a lot of trust in not only the fan base to come and participate in this with us, but also it's a trust in ourselves that this is a brand new story and that we have that beautiful opportunity to tell that story, right? We're actually adding to a story that is unfinished in a completely different medium. And I don't think that's really ever happened in theater history before, where a play is educating something that's occurring on TV and hasn't even finished. There are things in this season, season 5, that will be alluded to and will be have a higher understanding of if you come and see this show. And so for the true fans, it's kind of like you gotta see it in order to fully take in season 5. And for those who have never seen Stranger Things before, it's your opportunity to really step in because it is the prequel, it's the beginning, it's the origin story of our big bad. But I really appreciate you bringing up Harlem because that was such a beautiful experience in its own right. Because from a film perspective, it's not that it's not there, it's just something totally different. I mean, everybody who worked on that was really passionate about that project and really wanted to see it succeed and in the best way possible. And everybody was working within their specific department and their specific role to be able to do that. And to see that it occurs on a big stage like Broadway, but also on a big set like Harlem, I think that what occurs for an audience is they can really resonate with what's going on. They can tell when people care. They can tell when people are checked in and committed to a process. And so for me specifically, it's just about, really committing to the story of Stranger Things, but also to James Hopper Jr. and his personal arc. And this is a version that we've never seen before. And it's an opportunity to really put my stamp with these great people alongside me.
Well, I was gonna ask you too, because you are, like you said, this character's already established in a whole nother medium, but you get the opportunity to tell a story of him that is yet to be told, that basically crafts him into the person that fans already know him as. So What did you take from, any of the research you had to do? First of all, are you a fan of the show?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember watching this on my couch back in like, what was it, 2016 with my sister.
Yep.
Late at night, we watched one episode a night. I think it all came out in one go and we were instantly hooked. So even the idea of getting to add to that story, I mean, the David Harbour, come on.
Yeah.
Like it's just one of those people that is just so hard to not watch
Yeah.
when he steps on screen, particularly in this role. And so there's so many elements of that that you want to reference and that you want to evoke within your own work. But I think that Kate Treefry, who is our writer for the show, as well as a producer and writer on the TV series, what she has made so effortless in the room is that commitment to curiosity for all aspects of this character. This is a Hopper that we haven't seen ever before, like you said. And I mean, this is him at like 18 years old, 17, 18 years old in high school. He hasn't gone to the Vietnam War. He hasn't, been a cop in New York. He hasn't had all these sci-fi things occur to him in a way that he's conscious about. In many ways, he's just trying to survive. He's just trying to make it through high school, trying to survive a relationship with his father, and those are really, really human things that when you look at the grand scheme of like this, the things that start in this show will get completed in 30 years and 5 seasons of TV. That's a really juicy opportunity for any performer, because you get to suggest and plant a lot of seeds that audiences get to see fully blossom in a completely different way.
Well, as you said, you're the building block now. Like
Yeah,
before, there was no building block, but now you're the building block. You get to put the pieces, like, you get to begin the blossoming that fans then get to say, like, oh, that's how he becomes who he is. So, and I know you referenced like there's so much you want to take from David's performance and invoke it in yours, but how do you make that your own as well? How do you say, okay, his performance is great, but now let me help build the pieces to get to his, not his performance, but to his character?
absolutely. I mean, look, in case you were confused in this video, I am Burke Swanson. I am not David Harbour. I never will be, and David probably never wants to be Burke Swanson. It's just we are doing our own thing, and that is innately true. And so what comes from that, if you can surrender to that truth, is that innately I'm bringing something completely different. My life experience is very different than David Harbour's, and both of those get to educate a similar character in a way that hasn't happened before. And I think that what's really, really nice about it is that that freedom and that surrender has been so advocated for within the process, but also from the audience as well. There's so much that you get for free because they already love the character, and you can trust that you don't have to do a shtick, you don't have to do an imitation. I mean, when I was playing George McFly in Back to the Future, it was a very similar thing, right? Crispin Glover is so iconic in that role, and there runs a real risk that you would do a shtick or a stand-up routine of this character, but audiences connect to breath, audiences connect to truth, and if you are unable to find a way to make that into your own body, it doesn't matter how similar the voice is. It doesn't matter how similar the body is. And so for me, what I really, really focused on was what is the honesty of this character in this way. And I have to just trust that, based on everything else, that it's going to be a very connected process to it. So it's a lot of love to David, and also, hope that he enjoys it, should he be able to come out and see it. And also just the trust in knowing that we're both adding to this really beautiful character that is so well-rounded, and we get to see even more aspects of him.
Well, I think also it's the love of the character too, as you
Yeah.
said. There is a love either from fans or from whoever is playing this character. There's a love for this character, and the fact that now you're bringing a whole new love to him. You're bringing a whole new side of him that fans won't get to see or haven't seen yet. And that for you is such an impressive, such a fun part of your life. And you said before, you've already done it somewhat before with George McFly. And now you get to do it again. So do you take from what I'm asking is, if you look at Back to the Future and you're saying you're not doing a stick, what did you take from Back to the Future that you brought to Stranger Things?
I think it is the heart. I had a professor back at the Savannah College of Art and Design, Mark Timtishin, who his his constant directing note was find the heart of the character. What makes them really sincerely laugh? What makes them, kind of cover their face in glee? What is that aspect? And it can be seemingly very difficult with a character like Hopper, who is very guarded, who has a lot of walls, who has a lot of trust issues. But at the end of the day, Hopper wants to be loved too, and he wants to be connected. And I think what, for me, is the most important part about James Hopper Jr. as a complete character is it's somebody learning to find community, but trusting community.
Mhm.
And George, in many ways, is very similar. I mean, that's why people are so connected with him. He just wants to love and be loved, and he's just having the hardest time figuring out how to do that authentically. But when he allows himself to be his sincere self, that's exactly the moment when it happens. It's not when Marty tells him to do it, it's how he finds it within himself. And our story is seeing the first instance of that in Hopper's life. It's him learning that maybe community is an option. It's going to take him a long time to maybe really believe in it and allow himself to live in the beauty that is that. But when you have a character on the precipice of change and then other things begin to happen, there's a risk, there's a teeter that occurs where you never get to play just one thing. You get to really sort of like live in these are the circumstances, and I can't make that choice right now.
Well, I do have to mention this because I do find it funny that or at least these two characters are both from the 80s. Is there something that draws you to 80s characters?
Babe, I'm getting typecast right now. My 80s to 50s timeline is pretty silly, I gotta say. I mean, the first show that I ever did out of college was The Rose Tattoo, a Tennessee Williams revival over at the Roundabout Theater. Trip Coleman directed it.
Oh my God.
Marissa Tomei was the lead actress in it, and it's set in the 50s. I've been wearing like high-waisted navy pants for a very long time, and it's great. I mean, I think that the 50s and the 80s are just so iconic
Yeah.
within particularly American history. It's hard to not want to emulate or to shout out to or live within. And this show is no different than that. But yeah, I look forward to like doing something in like the 60s or the 70s or maybe even 2025. That would be interesting too. So, that's for the next projects, but we're enjoying 1959 for right now.
That's great. And because I have to ask, 'cause I did pick up on this. So obviously you're working with writers for Netflix for the season 5. So how much were you told? No spoilers. I know you're not, it's Netflix and they're probably going to listen to me. You can't do that. But like, how much were you given for season 5 to understand where the story essentially needs to get to?
I don't know if I've ever really experienced this. I mean, Bob Gale was in the room for Back to the Future the entire rehearsal process, which is just gives you a wealth of information
Mhm.
and context for what the intention was versus what is happening now. But this is something that, because it's a living, breathing story, it's a living entity in many ways. Like, I've never been a part of something where Netflix or the Duffer Brothers are calling in and being like, "Hey, this scene's got to get cut." Or this scene has to be, put in, or it needs to be emphasized more here. Or this line needs to be added or changed because what we're editing in season 5, it's not going to make sense if this isn't here. Or it needs to be elevated because we weren't able to touch on it so much in the series. That negotiation between it is has been very present within the room, and it's part of the fun of it all is that it really is married together, and knowing that this work is extremely important for this story, and knowing that it's not just some cheap cash grab or nostalgic piece. You're going to see the characters you love, but it is also adding to the story that you love. um, it's it's pretty surreal. I mean, the Duffer Brothers came for our first couple previews, and they'll be back for opening. And when you get their seal of approval, and you say, "Okay, we're helping do this thing," it's a pretty. It feels good. It feels good to know that you're all working towards that thing. Yeah.
Well, I hate to quote Hamilton, but do you ever feel like you're in the room where it happens?
Oh yeah,
Is it
every
you're like
single
looking
day.
over your shoulder, like, how does this even, how is this
Yeah, I mean, it's
happening?
just totally surreal. It's totally surreal. I mean, there's so much that's gonna happen in season 5 that we don't know about, but what we have been shared about is it's all about deepening the lore.
Mhm.
I mean, Stranger Things is one of the biggest probably like one of the best examples of world building and lore within the streaming era, and that's what people want to spend hours trying to deconstruct and figure out and unpack and everything else, and this show is really going to only add to it. Because it gets wilder and wilder, folks. It's a pretty intense show.
Well, for my final question, on every time you're going to take the stage, what do you hope an audience member is taking away from your performance and this show?
That is such a lovely question. Thank you so much for that, Megan. Yeah, I think when there was a moment the other day at the stage door that I'm gonna get a little emotional about it too. But there was this young girl, probably maybe 7, 8 years old, and her dad had come. She had the our Stranger Things hat on. It's New York upside down, and she had her playbill there, and she was like, just like waiting at the very, very end to have me come sign it. And her dad told me that she had seen me as George McFly in Lincoln, Nebraska, and that they saw that I was in the show. They loved the TV show, and they had to come. And this was her very first Broadway show. And I think that what I hope people take away from it is that the theater is very much alive. It may not be for those who are in the industry, maybe it's not the same as it once was, and maybe it does need to change, and it certainly needs to improve in certain ways. But in terms of at its core, what we're doing this for is to share stories collectively. And if this show welcomes an entire generation into the theater, if this show welcomes folks who love TV but have never been to a stage production, or who love theater but haven't really given time to streaming, like, this is your opportunity to really see the marriage of two things. It is as close to a TV show as it can be on stage, and it does it in such a theatrical way that it's hard not to be endeared by the commitment from every single department, not only the creative team, but also backstage. So many people working very, very hard, long, long hours to make this show work. And when seeing her, just be so excited and saying, I can't wait to come back, I can't wait to come back, that is the priceless element. Yeah, that you really, you can't recreate that. And that's what I hope people walk away from, is that they say, wow, that was a really splendid night in theater, and I cannot wait to come back. I cannot wait to come back.
Oh,
So
that's beautiful.
yeah.
Like,
So thanks for that, Megan. That's yeah.
yeah, no, that's the impact that you guys have. And I truly hope, as you said, because live theater is so important. It's so important to all generations and all ages. So I think you're a part of something that is going to draw a whole new generation to live theater. And honestly, I can't wait. I have plans at some point to come see the show. I'm really excited. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.